pieces to the puzzle. Show them the information. I'm literally going over Genesis. I don't know how else you want me to explain it.
You know there's a tradition behind the reading of Genesis 1. If you don't bring it up, dude, it's a problem.
Hello, deacons, bishops, and preachers, and baptizers.
I was mostly focused on something else. That's why. What was it that you wanted to bring up? Why didn't you bring it up?
Oh, gentlemen.
I tried not to get in here when the dude was on stage.
Upstairs?
Because you knew how it was going to go, so I let you handle it. And then you failed.
Handled it wrong.
Rabboni Shalom. Who's leaving the tip? Listen, gentlemen, I'd like to get a word in. I'd like to be recognized as a human who is a speaker. I put a link in the chat. My PTR is a book of Ayn Rand, Morals and Ethics of Objectivism. You should read the book at least once in case anybody ever agree that these are topics that you guys are actually talking about all the time. And Ayn Rand, she wrote her philosophy in the 60s, and it definitely mind virused the entire culture and society of America. It was very popular. So, I'm just saying it's important to know what they figured out in the 60s or 70s in terms, so how we can apply it to our lives today in 2026. Hello?
Hello?
Great.
I forgive you.
Oh, teach me. What was I supposed to say?
Like one? Well, you know the reading of Genesis 1, right? There's different.
Okay, this is the Ayn Rand Book Club. Carmen Honey in the house. I always wanted a little Carmen Honey in my life. Now I got a ketchup kitty cat, a tomato kitty. Carmen. Ketchup. So, I don't know if you know who Simon is on this app. I'm not sure who you are, Carmen. Maybe you are Abby. I don't know who you are. But basically, I bought a bunch of Ayn Rand books so I could at least understand why Simon is so obnoxious. Okay. And I understand it now. Simon actually may, if he agrees with everything in this book and I agree with it, well, then I'll have to admit that Simon was right about a lot of things. But until I read the book, we won't know for sure. Okay, this is Ayn Rand. We're gonna try to get through the whole book in 2 days, and I think after we.
So there's two 50 primary sanctions. Remove all direct U.S.
That's like the opposite of drill music, but still like disgusting music because it's like, girl, you're ready. What they're saying is they're like hunting a virgin and they're like trying to like hypnotize her into their, sexual act of deflowering and depravity. Usage to the word selfishness is not merely wrong. It represents a devastating intellectual package deal which is responsible more than any other single factor for the arrested moral development of mankind. In popular usage, the word selfishness is a synonym of achieve his own ends. Who cares for no living being and pursues nothing but the gratification of mindless whims of any immediate moment? Yet the exact meaning and dictionary definition of the word selfishness is concern with one's own interests. This concept does not include a moral evaluation. It does not tell us whether concern with one's own interests is good or evil, nor does it tell us what constitutes man's actual interests. It is the task of ethics to answer such questions. The ethics of altruism has any concern with one's own interests is evil, regardless of what these interests might be. And B, that the brute's activities are in fact to one's own interest, which altruism enjoins man to renounce for the sake of his neighbors. For a view of the nature of altruism, its consequences, and the enormity of the moral corruption it perpetrates, I shall refer you to Atlas Shrugged, or to any of today's newspaper headlines. What concerns us here is altruism's default in the field of ethical theory. There are two moral questions which altruism lumps together into one package deal. One, what are values? Two, who should be the beneficiary of values? Altruism substitutes the second for the first. It evades the task of defining a code of moral values, thus leaving man in fact without moral guidance. Altruism declares that any action taken for the benefit of others is good, and any action taken for one's own benefit is evil. Thus, the beneficiary of an action is the only criterion of moral value. And so long as that beneficiary is anybody, the grotesque double standards, the insoluble conflicts and contradictions that have characterized human relationships and human societies throughout, an industrialist who produces a fortune and a gangster who robs a bank are regarded as equally immoral, since they both sought wealth for their own selfish benefit. A young man who gives up his career in order to support his parents and never rises beyond the rank of grocery clerk is regarded as morally superior to the young man who endures an excruciating struggle and achieves his personal ambition. A dictator is regarded as moral, since the unspeakable atrocities he committed were intended to benefit the people, not himself. Observe what this beneficiary criterion of morality does to a man's life. The first thing he learns is that morality is his enemy. necessity of man's survival, not by the grace of the supernatural, nor of your neighbors, nor of your whims, but by the grace of reality and the nature of life. The objectivist ethics proudly advocates and upholds rational selfishness, which means the values required for man's survival qua man, which means the values required for human survival, not the values produced by the desires, feelings, the whims, or the needs of the irrational brutes who have never outgrown primordial practice of human sacrifices. Ever since their first publication, Ayn Rand's works have had a major impact on the intellectual scene. A new morality, ethics of rational self-interest, challenges the altruist collectivist fashions of our day, known as objectivism. Her unique philosophy is the underlying direction of her novels. Virtual selfishness, a new concept of egoism. You function by happening, that is to say, by spontaneous occurrence. And this is not a state of affairs that you should realize. I cannot possibly preach it to you, because the minute you start thinking, I should understand that, this is the stupid notion again of I should bring it about, when there is no you to bring it about. So that's why I'm not preaching. You can only preach